And to update of the Israel-Hamas war, Israel says, in quote, the damage done by the United Nations Security Council resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire in Gaza is the reason why Hamas has rejected its current proposal for a peace deal. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office says Israel will not surrender to what it calls the Hamas armed group's delusional demands. We have details in this report.
Israel reacted furiously after the UN Security Council adopted for the first time a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in the war in Gaza, following months of deadlock over the issue. The demand by Hamas includes an end to the war and the complete withdrawal of all Israeli forces. A State Department spokesman insisted that Hamas' response had been prepared before the Security Council vote on Monday. 14 council members, including the UK, voted in favor of the United Nations demand, which also calls for the unconditional release of all the remaining hostages and urgent expansion of humanitarian aid deliveries. The US, which is Israel's closest ally, criticized the resolution for failing to condemn Hamas for the 7th of October attacks, but said it fully supports the key objectives of the UN's demand. In protest, Israel cancelled a planned visit by an Israeli delegation to Washington to discuss its planned ground offensive in the southern city of Rafah, where more than 1 million people have sought shelter. The US has been warning that a full-scale assault could cause a humanitarian catastrophe. Later, Hamas put out a statement rejecting the latest truce plan put forward by mediators from the US, Qatar and Egypt at an indirect talks in Doha. The group said it was sticking to its original demands for a permanent deal that will lead to a full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and the return of displaced Palestinians to their homes. In reaction, the office of the Israeli Prime Minister said Hamas' stance, quote, clearly demonstrates its utter disinterest in a negotiated deal, and it attests to the damage done by the UN Security Council's resolution.
And joining me from the United Kingdom for more on the long-running war is Global Affairs Analyst Benga Onifade. Glad to have you join us on the world now. Now, if you can hear me very clearly, can you talk to us about what your own opinion is about the implications of the UN Security Council resolution and also the message the US is trying to, send by abstaining, and if this is binding in any form?
Sure. There has been a lot of pressure. Firstly to say, there has been quite a lot of pressure from the Democrats on Biden to make sure, if they can, if at all, to reduce, of course, the genocide and, of course, people dying on that front. If you realize, wherever United States move, the United Kingdom also tend to move as well. Yes. So even though it kind of felt like it was a lackluster movement, but eventually, he's actually trying to make the odd move right now, which is actually fair, on his side. However, people are saying it's not enough. And also, there has been a new memo which is actually sent around in the United States Cabinet or the Congress, where they said any country that is receiving any form of aid, they need a certain points or factors that they have to adhere to. And, so this is one of the things, really, which has actually prompted the United States. But again, it's not enough because the United States representative at the UN Congress, did actually abstain. There are few reasons. One of the reasons why she abstained was she wanted an edit to the proposal that was sent to United States. They wanted a total ceasefire while these talks, will go on, which wasn't included. That was number one. It wasn't stated in there, and of course, they wanted Hamas to be condemned. Again, Hamas was not condemned, or were not condemned in the readings. Hence, they abstained. But of course, we still had 15 people who supported it. But also, if you think about it, we've literally only got, what, 2 weeks? This whole thing's meant to last for the month of Ramadan, but there's only 2 weeks to the end of to the entire process, right? Really, but people want a lasting, permanent, full-stop solution, and also without having to take any side. It looks like from the Israeli side, who did not send any entourage at all, any supporters at all. They wanted to see through, and they said they wanted hostages released, like a chicken and egg, really. You wanted hostages released before we stop firing, but these guys also said, we need you to stop firing while, and then we can get to the table or come to glass. But
all right. Talking about the fact that people want a lasting solution to this, we saw the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, saying Israel made a very big mistake with the invasion of Gaza, noting that broadcast images of the destruction have turned many against the country. I'm not sure there's any legal backing to this. He has strongly criticized Israel since the beginning of this war. But what's your own opinion as regards this becoming an incitement in any form, or was he only just stating facts about the situation?
Excuse me. So speaking from Trump's side, there's no one way to this, because if you realize, if you're going to wind back 4 years ago when Trump was the president, he actually supported the move of the capital to Jerusalem of Israel, which is a disputed territory, and it's again just across enemy's lines. So that is right there. I think while Trump has got a few valid comments right there, but at the same time, Biden cannot put a foot wrong without put a foot right, rather, without Trump having an alternative, really. So I think Trump was right just to an extent, but again, you've got to only look at his record while he was there, which is quite a bureaucracy, really. It's just a back covering on both sides. But I was just trying to answer the first question as well, fully, when you said, is this binding? Is this resolution binding? I believe it is binding. It's legal, because it's now at the UN front. The two things that could happen, really. The first one is now, if Israel does not bind to this, they could actually get a huge fine, or sanction rather. But also they could have to get the United Nations peacekeepers to roll out. But and I think everything they will try and make anything happen to make these things binding. Netanyahu has actually been heated at his own front. There's election, which is a major one again, with the United Kingdom, also at the United States, all rolling in this year. So I think there's a lot right there. So we're not just looking at a 2-week solution. We're looking at a more permanent solution. I don't think we're going to get a permanent solution right now. The world's been trying, but this occupation's been going on, if I'm allowed to call it that anyway. But this conflict or war has been going on for years now, and I think they probably will help us get to a certain stalemate whereby we're not going to have to get to this fracas in future.
I agree with you on the fact that we should find a permanent solution to this issue. But where do you see this headed to? The Prime Minister is insisting that Israel will not surrender to what he called the Palestinian armed groups delusional demands. These include an end to the war and a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces. Hamas is insisting on a complete ceasefire. Where do you see this war ending? Are we speculating a full-scale invasion by Israel? Or what's your opinion?
No, I think the worst has actually been past. We've seen the worst now that's ever going to happen. Really, the worst is over. Right now, it's just maintaining the stalemate situation where we are. I think they've got the key. In terms of killing, and the key out war is actually being unleashed already. All we're just going to get right now is just like a trend, just maintaining whatever is going to go on. Any huge uproar, any huge full-scale invasion is going to be met by a huge uproar, and things just going to tail down, really. I think on the long run, just like Winston Churchill said, Georgia would always beat war. Everybody would eventually come to glass, even if it's not a permanent solution. Ultimately, the hostages will be released. Of course, I expect more killings to go on, but I don't expect a spike in what we've had in the past. And then again, like I said, there's a lot at stake. But more importantly, I think the world needs actions and not words. And that is so. This, even though it's not the best of situation we had over the votes yesterday, but I believe that this is actually a huge step. The United States were not even going to come to glass at all, but they're all there. And I believe with the United Kingdom even murmuring about 2 states. So this is actually a good stage to the end. We've had a few United Nations representatives have to resign because they believe the United Nations is not doing enough. So I believe we're getting towards the end. I don't expect us to see more spikes. I think, of course, there will be the odd gradual killing, which is probably going to level off towards the end. Are we going to get a 2-state solution? That remains a question that I don't think anybody can answer. But I believe even if you're going to get the next huge wave, we're probably never going to see that for another God knows how long years. But there's always going to be a conflict over there. It's always going to get disputed. Israel's actually put some more permanent pointers to prevent what's going to happen in future in terms of overseeing some of the securities. They've actually decided, there will be the odd dependency taken away from them, and they're going to depend elsewhere. So, and of course, building that permanent gap between both sides. So, I don't expect a full all-out war anymore. I don't expect this to just escalate any further. I think we're just going to tail off and probably just going to remain in a state of what do I want to call it? In a state of a stalemate until indefinitely for the time being. Anyway, I don't know how it's going to end. I think your guess is probably going to be as good as mine.
All right. Global Affairs Analyst Gbenga Onifade speaking to us live from the United Kingdom. Thank you for joining us on The World Now.